Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members, guests, distinguished guests, friends of AmCham. It's a real pleasure to join you today. Thank you for inviting me. And it's very timely because this week is the week of poverty. October 17 is the International Day for Poverty. This is the week where the UN requests the countries to commit, to think, to discuss issues of poverty, issues of support, issues of addressing the challenges of poverty globally. So I'm very happy to be here on this specific week, and I'm very happy to be addressing you for the first time in Egypt. As described by Sylvia, I have had the honor to talk to AmCham members and friends before that in the US. My presentation is to introduce a concept, a paradigm shift that we have adopted in government, a paradigm shift about how to look at poverty, and I will try also to explain to you what we have been doing in the last 5 years and what we plan to do in the next few years. This is where we were in 2014, and I believe I have used this slide when I talked to AmCham before. In this slide, we describe how subsidy was appropriated in Egypt. So there was a lot of subsidy, and a lot of subsidy going to the wrong people. And when you look at the pie chart below, you will find that 43% was going to the non-poor, and 24% to the near poor, and only 1/3 of the subsidy in Egypt was going to the poor. So we always had cash transfers in Egypt. We always had subsidy in Egypt since the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but it was poorly targeted. So the challenge was targeting when we joined in 2014. What is poverty? Poverty is a denial of choices and opportunities. And when we speak about social justice and social protection, it is about choices and opportunities. It's about the violation of human dignity. And it's about well-being. Many dimensions. It's not just about income, and it's about deprivation of basic human needs. So the poor we are addressing, the poor we are trying to help in the Ministry of Social Solidarity, live in a very dynamic world. They have basic needs, but these needs are changing. It's changing with age. It's also changing with gender. It's changing with health status and geographic location, culture, and it covers many dimensions such as income, health, education, employment, and others. Multidimensional poverty complements money-based measures. So 10 years ago, the world started looking at poverty differently. And nowadays, Egypt is working very closely with Oxford University on developing further this multidimensional poverty index. 2 families could have an income of £5,000, but one family has a disabled child, an elderly, sick mother who lives with them, or lives in an area where there is no water, no electricity, and no sanitation, and they have to pay for these services much higher rates than somebody living in Cairo, where they have access to many services, or in a family where the household members are all healthy and all educated and can be income generating. So it's not about the money, it's about the whole situation the family is living in. The Multidimensional Poverty Index is the new index I'm introducing today, and it looks at 3 blocks. The first block, and it's an important block, which constitutes 1/3 of the reasons why people are poor and reflects how people are expected to get better or not. It's about schooling and education. Investing in education is key to get people out of poverty. Second block is about health. If people have poor health, the opportunity to get out of poverty is very low. And the third one is about the standard of living. Where do they live? How does it look like, the household they're living in? Because there's a cost. It's expensive to be poor. When you are poor, you have no access to natural gas, you may not have access to sanitation, and you may not have access to potable water. Your kids get sick more often, your house doesn't have a roof, you can have a snake bite your children, and you spend a lot of time and effort commuting because you are away from basic services. This was developed 10 years ago. So in the world of poverty, it's rather new. But there's a newer dimension that was added 2 years ago, and I believe is very important. And this dimension is the dimension of culture. Culture is very important. A culture of violence, a culture of marginalization, a culture where there's a lack of diversity, a culture of discipline and hard work and respect of work is a culture that gets people out of poverty. So culture is very important, and culture is a determining element and dimension if we want to get out of poverty in this country.